Call the meeting of the work session to order. It is Tuesday, May 6th. I would ask that Joelle note roll call. And I think we all noticed that we have new desks, and I'd like to thank the staff for arranging it and getting them put in. So thank you. I know that's probably more work than the rest of us know. So, and I have a question. Why is there a telephone under Jan's feet?
Courtney's telephone activity.
She's not here tonight, but that could. Okay. With that, I don't have any other announcements for this meeting, so I would ask that Chief Olson begin. He has 3 items, 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. So he's gonna limit them to 10 and 15 and 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, go with that. Just don't start a
I
timer.
think that, Jane. Go ahead and
I
think.
mean,
All
we're
right.
going to do our best. They're going to be a little bit out of order compared to your 4.1, 2, and 3. I just did them in a little bit different order. I'm just waiting for them to hand me a mouse and then we'll. Don't start the timer yet on me. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. How do I move this guy? That one? Perfect. Thank you. All right, well, good evening. I've got, like I say, a few items to bring before you tonight. Some have just been waiting for a little bit of time. Some it does take us a little bit of time at the PD to finalize some statistics and things of that nature. So I wanted to wait to get those done and just kind of update the community on some things from the police department standpoint. First and foremost, the 2024 annual report that was in your packet. You should have hopefully had a chance to peruse it at least a little bit. Probably not read it word for word, but at least take a look through it. I'm going to go through our EAP, our emergency action plan, just so everybody just kind of understands it. It's nothing that the board would accept or adopt or anything like that, but it's just a plan that's in place for the village. So, you know, we're prepared, especially as we start to come into some more turbulent weather season. And then our strategic plan has recently been updated. And I'll talk through some of those 10 points as well as we go through that. You know, there's some participation guidelines I just want to remind the board about when we start to get into emergency operations center type things, and then just talk about some of our department goals. So we'll start with the annual report. Apparently it was the year of the Cairo, so the staff gets to vote on the photo for the cover of the annual report, and they put Officer Friendly on the cover of it. So plus they like his vest. When he puts that vest on, he knows it's like go time. So he gets like really kind of excited. I don't know how they got him to sit still that long, but they did. So this is kind of what we look like right now as far as organizational structure. There's a piece that's missing, you can see, and it's missing because I don't have anybody to fill it. But right now I have the captain overseeing all of patrol, and then he still has reports to him from the lieutenant who has like the administrative side of the house. I have it set up as specialized services, which is administration and investigations. And the captain has the sergeants for patrol. Ideally, there would be either another lieutenant here or just a different breakout to kind of oversee and manage the operations, because it does bear Chris down a little bit as he tries to develop and continue to grow in his role. But we're doing good. We do have one turnover spot now we're looking to fill. We got somebody that we're doing a background on, so we're working through that process as well. Just some of these are all data and stats. If you look through the annual report, I just want to add a little bit of context to some of them, but you'll see like our mental health calls, and I don't know how to move this box down here. If there's a way of somebody. Yep, we got it. Thank you. Our mental health calls have reduced, right, since COVID. If you look at 2020, that's the COVID year, you can see significant amount of mental health labor hours, calls responding to mental health type stuff. There's 2 things I want to pay attention to with this. Is first of all, this is generated through staff noting that they're dealing with a mental health issue. This isn't tracked anywhere in the CAD. This isn't tracked anywhere where I can do a crystal report and extract the number of hours or how many officers. This is if they forget to put MH in their daily briefing log that I get, everybody in the department actually gets it. It's not necessarily tracked. So this is pretty true to case, but there could be a little bit of error with it. In 2024, you look at, we had about 81 and a quarter hours of labor hours with 59 total calls for service. It's probably a little bit more than that, but again, this is just the human error side of it. This has reduced significantly. We do have some people that were drawing on our resources pretty heavily. They've moved out of the village. So that is kind of, you know, and we'll do anything we can for anybody that we can absolutely help. When somebody's in crisis, we'll drop everything we're doing to try to help that situation. But a couple of people have moved, and that's kind of, for the mental health side of it, helped us a little bit. The juvenile mental health is also, you can see this steady pattern going down. Some of this is we may not get called, especially if it's in the school, but you can see it's still about a third of our call volume is juvenile mental health related. One thing we talked about heavily in 2023, we had very, very high alcohol or OWI type enforcement. Last year, we ended the year with 55, which is more in line with where we had been. You can see it was 56 for 3 years in a row. And then we got to 50, 150, and then now we're back down to the 55. So it's a pretty consistent type of enforcement. This is also predicated with the fact that we were down 2 bodies most of last year, and then with 2 people on field training. That proactive side of policing that kind of keeps the streets a little bit calmer and safer, because I have people out making lights flash and doing proactive traffic enforcement, was reduced last year because we had an unexpected retirement and somebody left the department. So that put us down, and then we had to do a recruiting effort, which we got really good candidates out of. We had to get them into the academy, so that took them through fall. And those 2 officers are now just going to be getting out field training this week. Pete's first day by himself will be Thursday. Connor's first day by himself will be Sunday. So that'll kind of put us back up to a little bit better position. Look at our crime statistics. Again, they're pretty consistent. And while you can look through every one of these categories, we just had the DA's office in for training last week. We had them do 2 4-hour sessions on domestic violence and law enforcement, if you will, issues that there is. One thing I've really tasked the captain and the lieutenant with, and Sergeant Schaefer, as he oversees investigations right now, is looking for consistent patterns on returns from the DA's office. So if they're returning things consistently with no prosecution, why are they not prosecuting? And if it's our fault, if we're not asking a question, if we're not getting a piece of data, that's something we're going to correct. So they're identifying patterns that we've taken, like what I would call step 2 into data and overviewing criminal stuff I've done my whole career, but it's just a little bit different way to look at things. They've really kind of focused and drilled down into that now. So we had the DA's office, they did 4 hours, and it really came in handy Sunday night when they had a really significant domestic violence that we ended up forcing a door and taking somebody into custody. It just kind of really came at the right time, I guess, if you will. You look, some of these things we get a lot of reports on them. We have good relationships with our businesses. Some of the thefts, the retail thefts, we're going to get a few extra calls because we really try to solve them. Last year was the one where we had the theft at the plumbing store east of 51. We acted quickly on it, I always say with urgency is the phrase I use next door. We did a quick search warrant, recovered all their property. So we work hard to get these. We try to have a good positive relationship with our business community, and in turn, when they need us, they call us. So the different way I've said that we're looking at things is there's 2 ways in the system you can clear or close something. To me, if you close a case, like an officer does their job, they get through everything they possibly can, they say there's no more facts or details, that case isn't cleared, they can close it. So basically, I want to say it's hidden, but it just isn't worked on because there's nothing else to work on. That's not, by standards, that's not a clearance, okay? So what I've tasked, the captain is really taken a brunt and really jumped at this one. Sergeant Schaefer's jumped at it, really understanding that there's only a couple ways you can clear a case, by clearing by UCR, WIBER standards through the federal government, basically what we have to report. That's you can clear things exceptionally, you can clear them by arrest, you can clear by death of offender, you can clear by exceptionally, it's called. So there's only like 4 categories you can use. And this is what this data reflects. To me, this is a better reflection of what and how we perform as an organization, is what does this look like? Okay, so if you look, the bottom half of this chart is the 2024 in total. We had 42 reported crimes against people, would be like your batteries. A lot of those crimes are going to be domestic violence related when we start to look at them, because that's just that we aren't that big of a community. 30 of those cases are cleared. 71% is above the national average. Okay, I would expect that number even to drive up more, that they start drilling down and looking at cases and what the fault, why they're not getting charged out. Crimes against property, to say that we're at 49%, somebody go, oh my God, you're not even at 50%. That's about 18 to 19% above the national average. Usually your crimes against property is not a very high clearance rate because it's a lot of unknown. It's somebody spray painted or graffitied this property, no idea who did it. We end up clearing a lot of those, believe it or not, because we have a tag book that we start to see who did what graffiti, what goes together, and we can clear a lot of those. But you see, there's still a significant amount that these are reported sometimes days, weeks, months after it actually happened. There's almost no investigative lead to it. Crimes against society, that's your disorderly conducts and things like that, your drugs, narcotics types things. Those are going to be higher clearance rates, so it doesn't surprise me they're at 87%. And then you look totally, when we say overall as an agency, we're clearing, my neck hurts from looking up, Judd, sorry. But I think it's 64%. I just had to get it in there for him. But 64%, I believe it is. That's actually pretty good when you look nationally. Anybody who is a law enforcement agency tells you that we're clearing 90, 96% of the time, and I've heard people say it, they're flat out lying. It's not clearances, they're counting closures, and it's two distinct things. So if you hear somebody talking about 96, unless you have like 2 or 3 crimes, it's really not feasible. 3-year call statistics, this I find interesting as I start to look back at data, because we had an overall reduction in calls in 2024. A lot of that's driven off of traffic numbers because I didn't have the people to do a lot of proactive traffic patrol. So that number goes down a little bit. But if you look at the teal or the light blue color up there, our calls for police service were actually up from the previous year. Our crime calls were a little bit lower, about 101 lower from the year before. And then our traffic contact volume was lower. So that drives the overall picture. But to me, the calls for service are still high. They're still going up. So people calling, I need help with this, I need help here. Those kinds of things are still increasing. It's some of the proactive stuff that was down a little bit. And that's predictable just with staffing and shortages and things of that nature. The other thing I'm noticing is that our complexity of call is going up. I mentioned the domestic violence case from the other night. I mean, that takes 3 to 4 officers, everybody we had on shift to handle that situation for a period of time. Taking a resistive person to get medically cleared into the Dane County Jail, those things take a little bit of time and effort from everybody. So our calls are up. Our training is one thing that we've really continued to maintain at a high level. And by that, I mean, we do things a little bit differently. All credit to the staff, but we do things, I think, a lot better than some others I've talked to, because we use a lot of decision-making in training, which is really what it has to come down to. And it's not like, my previous department, if you knew if they were going to do scenarios and it was a force scenario, every time you walked in the door, you're going to have to use force. And it was almost like there was very little decision-making. We changed that model. And the model is quite simply, you have to make your decision and respond accordingly. So if you do active threat training, just as an example, which is what the pictures you see up on the screen are, not everything is going to be discharging a firearm, right? You might run into somebody who just gives up on site and you have to react to that. They'll do physical force type scenarios, and not everything is a physical force. Sometimes people give up, or they allow you to take them into custody or use different techniques. So we do a lot of that type of stuff. We have to do TASER research. We do that annually. We have to do firearms. We get requalified annually. That just occurred. We're working Cairo into our training now, which for staff who's never worked with a canine before, it's very different because the dog reacts differently. Like, you don't get in front of the dog. Potentially Sergeant Hughes learned that the hard way because Cairo jumped up on his back and was breathing in his ear when they were clearing a building and an alarm. But you learn quick because it's an uncomfortable feeling to have him jump up on your back. So that happens. But we're integrating him into training. And now Thursday they have drone training for the drone team. They're doing some more research type training. And they're going to incorporate Cairo because you can see on the screen, you can actually see him running around even with the heat signature on the drone. So it's kind of neat to see and work those things together. Again, all for the case that when we need them, we're prepared to respond accordingly. We still do our active threat, our vehicle operations. This is high-risk vehicle contacts. This is what that HRVC stands for, like end of pursuit type things to order people out of cars. Again, we still retrain OWI enforcement. And the one thing that I'm proud of is that we consistently weave like fair and partial policing into our trainings. Like, how do you respond to this? How do you do so impartially? How do you do so fairly? How do you let evidence guide you? How do you use procedural justice? Things of that nature. Our community policing efforts still remain high, and I'm really proud of it. For the first 29 years of my career, I got to do very, very little to almost no community policing because I was too busy in the department I was in. It's one of the best things you can possibly do. If you're not doing these types of things, you're actually missing out. You're doing your community a disservice. So our youth academy has been posted again. That remains strong. On the left, you can see that was our days. Officer Fleury, we tried something different. I picked it up at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference, talking about an elf on the shelf and how people can learn about your department. Well, I gave the captain just a broad-based, let's get the elf and try this. And he took it to a really good level of just talking about everything we do, trying to get people to learn about the department. So we had pretty good success that way, some pretty good feedback that way. Winter Wonderland remains a big hit for our community. It's our event that we basically put on an event for special needs families, people with intellectual disabilities. Obviously, I'm on the Special Olympics Board of Directors, so it's kind of near and dear to my heart, but this event started when I came here, just can't believe it'll be 7 years now. But you know, when I did it at MPD, it was for people who are victims of crime, people who like lost their parents to drive-by shootings and things like that. And here we do it for a different purpose, and it's really, really successful. People look forward to it. We have a great partnership with the school where the students every year ask, when is it coming? When is it coming? So they help staff that. It really allows us to really focus on families and build relationships, which we've capitalized in the community when calls for service come in. This one comes up next week, Bike to School with an Officer. I think it's next week. If not, it's the week after. We get a huge turnout. Through the school, we tell the kids, hey, we're gonna, you can ride to school with one of our bicycle officers. And they'll meet at Western Green Park. The parking lot will be full. And it's just this huge line of kids going, or they'll meet over here on DeForest Street and we'll take them down through the neighborhood and then over to Eagle Point. It's just a really kind of cool event, but it's really, really well attended. Family Fun Night, we get a huge draw for that. If you haven't been, I encourage you to come. It'll be September 11th of this year will be the day. It's a Thursday because by our new staffing model with the 10 and 8-hour days, everybody's assigned to work on that Thursday. So we moved it to a Thursday from a Tuesday for staffing purposes. But we get great community support. We estimate 3 to 4, sometimes 5,000 people in the park. We don't do National Night Out when everybody else does it because we want to get everybody in our community the opportunity to go elsewhere, but be here and make ours special. And it really works out that way. So we have a good turnout for that. And we get a lot of community support, whether it be for our police foundation and kids like doing a lemonade stand and then donating all the proceeds to bring us Cairo. I mean, that was kind of a cool thing to see. And then trying to get our officers to realize that, community policing is a good thing, the way to do it. And you see even the current, like the ones who've been around a while, the Haley Lockrens, the Jake O'Connells, the Mike Gilsons, the one who've been here a while, they get what we're doing. But even to see some of our newest ones, and the red shirt down here is Pete Christensen. That was last summer before he went into the academy playing pickleball with kids. We just do these pop-up events. We started them it'll be about 7 years ago this summer. But where we'll just put on social media, we're gonna be here at this time when we have extra staffing for a day. Come meet us and hang out, and we'll take a couple of people and do the community policing thing. We got like 60 to 70 people who show up, like with a 2-hour notice. It's pretty incredible to see. And it's really kind of a good way to kind of build relationships. So there's still, I say the best things are yet to come because there's still some things I want to accomplish. I want to compartmentalize our citizen academy. We haven't had a ton of draw for that lately, but really compartmentalize it, take certain lessons out of it, whether it's use of force, maybe that drives a population, let people sign up for it. And make modules, and if they attend every module, then you get a certificate of completion instead of doing it as a full course, right? Like I might really be interested in pursuit driving. I might be interested in ECDs or use of force or these types of things, legal updates, SRO, name it. we'll compartmentalize it and try a little different approach. Since nobody else is doing it, we're going to try it and see how that works out. So to all my staff that listens to this recording later, by the way, we're going to be doing that. And then we do have a teen learning modules that we kind of want to put in place. And then I want to start a leadership group. I've talked to the school about it already, because there's a lot of questions with kids, especially adolescent kids, about what really law enforcement's role is and why you do certain things. So the only way to do it is to talk about it. So I've asked if I could start a group at the school, probably kick off next year, but it's just one of those things that I'll take time out of my schedule to do it with kids that are interested, because I think it'll help us in the overall picture. Can't really talk too much about how we're doing without talking about numbers. So this is, Carol always calls it free money, but this is just, I know I get the look. I'm sorry. I just had to do it. She never does, but we just like to tease her. But so I compared where we are exactly today to 1 year ago today, and this is just the comparison. Some of these are hard, the wages and everything that, you got to count in play, cost of living adjustments to their contract. And also they went up 26 hours per person. So that of course is up, but it's only about 3.5%, I believe. Our operating is actually down a little bit. There's only a couple to really draw attention to here, because most of these are still pretty early in the year, but we're doing really, really well as far as that. We're down about 6,000 in expenses. The overtime is actually lower than what it shows on the screen here. It shows we've expended 17,000, but we are still waiting for reimbursements for grants. So we anticipate that to come down about $7,000 to $8,000 already. So we're going to be down at this point. Knock on wood that continues with the trend. We are fighting with the 10-hour days that after 10 hours, people want to just go home. So that kind of does help to get them out, I guess, a little bit on time. So I'm just going to keep moving if that's okay. And then at the end, if you have questions,
Please do.
hit them all at once. So I know I can get a little long-winded. The EAP, there's just a couple of things. The emergency action plan, really, it focuses on our 4 areas, which is mitigation, preparation, response, and recovery. Those 4 areas that we have outlined in our EAP, it's up-to-date plan and that we activate situationally. Okay, sometimes it's a weather event. If you have like major snow or significant heat or cold, we may activate it or open up the building for like a cooling off room or a warm room if somebody was to need a warming room. Our vestibule, if you will, is heated in the summer. It's definitely heated in the summer, and it's heated in the winter too. It's really heated in the summer, but we can, if situation needs for cool, I can work the fire department. Their area is sealed. We could open up our training room unless it's set up as an EOC, and then it's kind of off limits. But natural disaster, we did have a little flooding event in 2019, so we have those kinds of things we activated the EOC for. Walking down the hallway, I learned I was the emergency management guy from Captain Riedel too. That was kind of a neat thing we still chuckle about. But, community events will proactively set the EOC up just in case something happens. So it's ready to go. It's just not operational, but it's all prepared. Family fun night, oftentimes we'll set it up just in case any kind of large gathering we have in the village. Riverfest will oftentimes have it set up just because I know they get a large event gathering down there. If we need it, we can quick activate it and it's set to go. It doesn't take us as long. And if there's large scale incidents, like if there was an active threat event, or if there was some officer involved critical incident, that room would likely need to be set up and get up and running quickly, just to protect the community. So can open a couple different ways. Either I can say, yes, we're going to activate the EOC. The village president can call me and ask, hey, can we open the EOC? Or if I'm on vacation, which Bill knows how this works, but if I'm on vacation and Chris Riedel would be my designee for the EOC. If he was to call the village president and say, hey, we need to open the EOC, then you can open it based on that. It's basically common sense. If we need it, we open it and we go from there. If Bill was to call me and say, hey, what do you think? Yeah, we'll just open the room and make it work, okay? There are only certain people that are allowed in the Emergency Operations Center. It's not a free-for-all. So what I guess I'm getting at is, while everybody wants to help, we can't have everybody in the room, because it gets very chaotic. I can reflect back to the 2019 flooding, and it was chaos because people were coming in and out, and it just causes more distraction than you need. And all these roles that you'll see up here are not always staffed all the time. If it's not something not impacting the school, generally you don't have a school rep. If it's some major like weather event, a tornado, God forbid, but a tornado, we might need the school for a shelter, so the school would be a part of it. It's all of these little give and play type of things. But again, when it comes down to it, too many people just aren't helpful. We'll need people to be volunteer coordinators and help volunteer efforts. I remember the flooding, and I can remember our then village president, seated to my right here, he was help coordinating people filling sandbags and delivering sandbags. It's just that all in hands on deck kind of attitude. It's just in the room is where it gets really, really chaotic when you're trying to get briefing and hear. And for me at that point, it was still trying to learn. It was like 4 days I had been here or something like that. So we just don't allow extra people in, and we'll turn people away. If I have to, I put a guard on the door. We'll have ID cards that are color coded. Only people with a certain color ID card can get in. And that's really just a control if we have to. We can invite others in if we need it, but generally it's pretty tight as to who's allowed inside. There's not a ton of space when we set up the design. So when we talk about communications, it's got to come like as one. We don't want 5 different messages from 5 different places unless it comes from a specific department. Like if it's a PD event that drives this, it would likely be from us. But again, it just speaks as one. So we don't want a bunch of different messages coming out. They got to be timely, relevant updates, communication. They've got to have a meaning. You just don't schedule things. Like if I'm going to schedule a press conference for 6 hours, we'll tell people, we'll post it, we'll get that. But we're not just going to say, hey, we're going to release something just to say we released something. It doesn't do anybody any good. It loses the meaning. And then our social media platforms obviously become really important. Public Safety Commission is the one who kind of reviews the plan. We're going to do that at our next meeting. That'll be on our agenda to do that. We do it every year. We've done it every year. And then we serve as like a panel for kind of debriefing incidents if we activate the emergency center. And then we'll be doing some tabletop exercises with them once we get a little bit more developed. So the last thing I have for you is the strategic plan, kind of almost on time, which is scaring me a little bit. I did put this in front of you here tonight. So you have 2 things. You have the actual plan itself in a little pamphlet form. And then the task sheet is really how we're going to accomplish the plan. So our first strategic plan, it came out in 2019. I kind of drafted almost all of it myself. We were able to accomplish, I set it as about a 7-year plan. I think it would take us about 7 years to get there. Well, within 5 years, we're about 95% either completed or started on all the objectives that were identified. So I said, that's it. We got to redo it. So we started really strong. We still continue to be strong and working through it. But when we redid it, we did some consulting with some stakeholders. I asked the department staff, first and foremost, what they thought, what they were. I set the goals for the plan, asked them about, how they thought we could get there, if there's any adjustment they had. I did send all of you a survey. Some of you, I believe, responded. Some didn't leave a name. So if you did it, I appreciate your feedback on it. And then the police commission, we met with them. The captain and I met with the police commission directly. And then we also sent them the survey to fill out. We got some feedback from all of them as well. The police commission has seen the strategic plan. They reviewed it and approved it on April 3rd of this year. So they have seen everything that you all have in front of you as well. Sorry. Okay, so it's based on these 5 goals. Okay, investing in public safety, investing in development of people, investing in inclusion, investment in transparency and accountability, and then last is investment in health. Time to take care of our people. So if you look through it, and you can peruse through this whenever you so desire, hopefully you desire to kind of look through it a little bit. There's laid out specific objectives for each one of the goals. Okay, and I want to thank Stacy Harmon because she did a really good job of kind of helping me include pictures and making this look a lot more professional than I could, because my limit was developing the strategic goals and getting the objectives kind of put together after I met with people. But so Stacy did just a really great job for me in getting this put together, and I really appreciate her help. And if you look at the task sheet, I just want to highlight just a few of them for you, because some of these we've been working on already, and some of them hopefully you've noticed a little bit of increase. Like investment in public safety, I said we really need to increase our social media presence, because it's kind of the way of the world. People learn through social media today, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. You can make your own determination, but the power of social media is definitely there. So we've kind of ventured just beyond Facebook and Instagram a little bit. I'm not a huge Instagram user. I just send my kid funny dog videos generally just to annoy her when she's away at school. But we have really kind of stepped up that effort a little bit. The captain has kind of helped drive in that to keep that moving forward. You see, like every month we'll release how many calls for service we had, how many of this we had, certain metrics that we kind of look at. So that's kind of in place already and moving forward. One thing that you hear in any organization is internal communications. So we're really working on creating an intranet type of thing or a platform. We've taken all our policies and put them on a platform that staff can see when they're in the car on patrol as compared to trying to find them on a server somewhere. So it's really kind of helpful because then if they don't know how to do something, they go right to the policy book and try to figure it out without, having to get somebody to help them. We do have some event team stuff to kind of help organize some of our community policing type things as we look into development. Really, we want to keep moving people on a career plan, kind of talking to them and figure out what do you want your career to be? What do you want your journey to be, if you will? So we've kind of taken that one to heart and really kind of worked with our staff to try to identify where they want to go in their career and how can we help them get there. It's twofold. The other part is I don't want to waste training money and people just taking courses because it seems like a course, right? Like if this is where you want to be, let's find the right mechanism to help you develop into that. So we've kind of looked at it from that aspect as well. We're now creating and keeping matrix of what staff specialties are, like what drives them, who's our drone people. I know who the drone people are, but really kind of keeping that on the forefront, and especially as we start to look at assigning days and work groups and things like that. They get to pick, which, is good and bad, I guess that way, but it's good. They get to pick the shift they want. Sometimes if we get everybody stacked in one, either red or blue, that it's got the same specialty, as we kind of add extra people to teams, it's nice to have some on each one of the teams in the department. Really, both of our clerks, all of our admin staff are phenomenal. So you have Tamara, Kayla, and Sandy. They all do a great job, but really trying to cross-train them so that, you hate to say the inevitable might happen, or you hate to say like something bad happens to someone driving home, or you get a flat tire, you get sick, you can't come into work. Who's picking up the slack? That kind of thing. So we're kind of cross-training them. And at the same time, I don't need a crime analyst. I wouldn't come here and say, hey, I really need to hire a crime analyst. It doesn't do me any good. But there are some analytical things that people can learn. So really trying to get Tamara and Kayla specifically up to speed on some basic analytic work that you can do without adding really any costs, except the cost of training is something that we're looking into and starting to do. So we continue to use our leadership model, the dispersed leadership model, and train leaders across our organization and to do that. And then really trying to use our partnerships to capitalize on some training opportunities. For our search warrant team, our Milwaukee friends were great. They gave us 6 days of training basically for free. So they did 2 groups of 3 for our team, which really kind of helped them not only as they became on a search warrant team, but also just to be safer doing their job day to day. So those types of things are really, really important for us, and we continue to focus on that. And then back again, our social media group, we started a social media committee so they can work on identifying what they think the need is. Just they can start to develop some of those things because content takes time to develop. It's not like it instantly just comes out of nowhere, but some of our young ones are really, really good at identifying ideas, and we can kind of work together to get that done. The one thing that you'll start to see is we're going to do more and more community type meetings. We're doing one next week. Our first one will be over in Jefferson Square. There were some questions posed to me by a citizen over the weekend. So I said, well, we'll just come out and meet when you have your next meeting. So we're going to do that next week because it's important for us. And like I can come here all the time and give you the professional standards report, or I can talk about transparency and crime and things like that. But at the end of the day, that really reaches a finite audience. So we want to try to expand that a little bit. A lot of the other things that we talk about in our plan is getting out through the entire community. The southern end of DeForest is developing so fast that the Savannah Brooks neighborhood, obviously with the ice arena and things like that, opens up opportunities and challenges for us. So we want to meet the challenges head on and capitalize on the opportunities. But trying to work with and build some relationships in that community and try to have some neighborhood meetings down there is something that I know Sergeant Hughes and Sergeant Schaefer and Sergeant Payne and Sergeant Ritzmer are going to look forward to working on as well as they kind of continue that. Some of that came from feedback from the sergeants specifically in the strategic plan survey was to try to get out. So we've got some events scheduled throughout the village, over in Conservancy, down on Savannah Brooks, and then the typical ones that we do up in this area as well. So last one, the investment in health. I've talked about it through the budget process, talked about it through some of our other report outs that I do for the board, is to really start an EIP program, an early intervention program. So that is in the process now, as is peer support. The problem with peer support training is finding the right people to be on a peer support team, somebody that can be trusted, somebody that staff will open up to. So with that, I'm partnering with another agency. They're going to be getting a new chief here next week. So I got to wait till that person's in place to really talk to them. It was in place till they had their chief retired, but really trying to partner so that we can capitalize on each other's resource. If it's a mental health type thing, I need somebody to talk to somebody, and our chaplains do a great job for us, but that's a limited resource as well. And then Sergeant Ritzma's created like monthly workout challenges. I think we're going to start potentially a pickleball league internally to see, hey, on your off time, you go find this person you got to play this week, and just do something to build teamwork, but also just get out and get moving. So that is, that's everything in a very quick nutshell. I kept it almost close to on time, which is scary for me, but I'm happy to answer questions that you might have.
Are there any questions? And we'll keep these brief because we do want to get through updates today. Rebecca?
No real questions other than to say, I know when you were talking about social media, I've seen you guys on there a lot more, and I've seen people more and more engaging. So I think that's been really successful with what you guys have been doing. And kudos, really good report. Thank you.
Thanks. It's trying to get in that algorithm on social media so it hits the top of their feed.
Other questions? Jim?
There was the police annual report, the first one that you had out, there was a page 14 and a page 16 I noted. I don't know if you can go back to it, but really what I was getting to is that there is a bunch of different speed enforcement numbers. And I'm curious about those numbers. Thought that was the page. Anyway, my question being is, I'm wondering how many of those speed enforcement things are out on 51 versus in town, or maybe 19. Do you have location specific?
I don't have location specific. I can tell you we've been driving people off of 51 and onto the more of the village streets. So our grants that we get, and I know this is a point for some folks, gets to be they're identified by DOT for the enforcement areas, but we have enforcement throughout the village. So we have been using a lot more of that to cover like Main Street, to cover South Street, River Road, 19, all the other areas that we're seeing increase in traffic crashes. So I don't have an exact number, but it is diversified.
Okay. What I think I heard is, you know, I'm particular about those grants on 51. But you're able to use those on local roads too then?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, just checking, it's been a year since the 410s came into effect, or 8 months?
5 months, but yep.
Yeah, is it working out well?
So far, it's working. Staff seems happy. You know, we check in with them as we're required to by their MOU. We just had a check-in with them maybe a month or so ago, and they didn't have any issues. The scheduling gets to be interesting, but it's not burdensome, I think is the way to put it.
Okay, and then I would just want to compliment you on your engagement with the public. Family Fun Night is a really popular event, and it seems to be growing and growing every year. And you get a lot of engagement from other departments. The crime lab comes out, you know, Monona will come out, and maybe they'll spur ideas for them for their night out or things like that. But it's important, you know, like on a day like today, an officer stops over here and walks by and asks the parents, hey, any concerns, you know? And that's important, and that's one thing that sets us apart. I've talked to you about Milwaukee. They don't have the engagement, you know, they stopped. And when that stops, you have problems. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, anything else? If not, we're going to go through updates because I promised Bill I would make that happen. So we're going to start with your update, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. So just an update from me here, this evening. At the beginning of the year, we started with, 3 active, lawsuits that the village was involved in. First one, being, the David Jacobson versus DeForest, the village of DeForest and GEC. This is having to do with building code violations, and inspections along Fountainhead Road. And I want to report that is still ongoing. That is with our attorney through our insurance company for our defense. There has been a withdrawal of their attorney, so there's been a schedule, an amended schedule in regards to timeline, so that's getting kicked out. The second claim or case here involves a auto accident that happened, I believe, a year and a half ago now. That case went to the insurance company. They resolved or came to a settlement, and that case has been dismissed. And then thirdly, as you are aware, we have a case against Bear Tree Farms in regards to Churchill condos. This is particularly about the grading and stormwater of the overall site. We did receive a tentative or proposed resolution to that in hopes to resolve the issue before the hearing date at the end of the month here. We did walk the site with the developer's engineer and their construction team, so I think we have a plan set up here to hopefully get those the stormwater issues and the grading issues resolved by the end of June. So we're still working through that process, but I wanted to give you those updates in regards to our legal happenings in the village. And then lastly here, we did close last week on the 16 acres of recreational land down in the Conservancy area where we've negotiated to acquire that property for a special use park in the future. That's all.
Thank you, Bill. Carol, do you have any updates? Okay. Police Department? Nope. Thank you. Public Services update, Judd?
All right, a couple things, quick. Stevenson and Burton Drive was resurfaced. That was done this week. Stevenson was done yesterday. Innovation Drive will be done Thursday. They're doing the base tomorrow and the final lift on Thursday. 1 week. It's a pretty good turnaround for folks on Innovation. There's been a lot of concern about that, but I think 1 week is a pretty quick turnaround to have a road redone for folks. Pepsi Way will then be paved on Friday this week, so that stuff should be just about complete. Williamsburg Way, we're having a walkthrough at 19 for the lights. They're not signalized, they're not operational yet, but the lights and stanchions are up, is my understanding, and so we're going to have a walkthrough with them with the state of Wisconsin. The crack filling has been done throughout the village. Next will be chip sealing at some point this year, in the spring coming soon. And then out at the yard waste site, we added some extra bins. So you may see there's the ones where you dump your grass clippings and brush. We put a couple extra up that are for the village purposes to hold mulch or other things that we might need. So those are the updates I have. Questions?
Bill?
Yeah, on Innovation Drive, I was contacted by some residents about the 2x4s that were put in front of, and that was inadequate, just a single 2x4. Is there any reason they couldn't put gravel in front of that and then come back with a bobcat and just scoop it out? I would imagine some people crack their rims or pop their belts if they weren't aware of how steep that was. That was
Sure.
4 to 6 inches.
Yeah, so, well, I was out there, I walked it, I went for a walk last night and walked through there. There were 2x4s placed, certainly. There's some concern from folks, but those 2x4s did it. If we would have gravelled every one of those, I mean, as fast as that process was moving, it would have just been, it would have actually delayed it probably because we'd had to gravel every driveway, put in that little extra ramp for them and then remove it out. Would I have liked to seen maybe an extra 2x4 or so in there potentially? If you drive slow, you can't back out of your driveway at super speeds. You got to go out at a reasonable speed and you can ease down off of there. I mean, one of our employees works there, lives out that way. She's got a very low car. She had no issues with it. So I understand. I got the same complaints along with some other wild things. It's a pretty quick turnaround, so.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I did get a call about what's going on in Lake
you.
Road by Windsor.
On what?
That they.
Oh, Lake Road.
Torn Lake Road up, CV, and it's not ours, but the question was, when will that be done? And it appears to be almost done now, so.
They're not having it, it's gonna go all summer, right? So CV is being redone with gas main and sewer sanitary, or not sanitary, storm sewer upgrades. This year and the next year, they'll refinish Highway CV. Windsor's upgrade there at that intersection, it will have lights and things. I think that's maybe the bigger concern. I drove through there yesterday and there was no flaggers. It was one lane. So there's been a lot of complaints about that. I've heard that from people too, and I reached out and they said it's not ours. The same with the pothole on Vinburn Road. When you're heading east on Vinburn, when you get to that first house on the right-hand side before you get to the Rawls farm, there's a significant pothole there. And residents have said, we need to fix that. I'm like, it's not our road. I'm sorry. I wish we could, but we can't, so.
Okay. Well, yes, Rebecca.
Just a quick question about the 50 highway, the Van Burn and Northtown Road.
Mhm.
When does that start?
Oh, that's 2027.
2027. Okay, ways off. Thank you.
Fine.
I couldn't remember if it was this year or next.
Tomorrow, there's a public information meeting for it that we're kicking off. Good catch. Good, yes. So that will happen tomorrow night from 5 to 7 here with the presentation at 5:30.
Okay.
And there is a notice of quorum posted, so I don't know if anybody responded back yet, but it's noticed. So if people are going to show up from the board, the trustees, you're covered.
Good. All right. Alex.
Just a small business update. So First Choice Dental has been operating for a little bit now, but they're going to be having their ribbon cutting and grand opening this Thursday from 5:30 to 7. Mr. P's Grilled Cheese will be there. They'll do a tour of the facility. If you have time, go out and support a new business. They are on North Street, First Choice Dental. Yep. So that's all I got.
All right. Administrative Services, Callie's not here, Joelle? All right. And Reese isn't here, but do either of you have anything for recreation and community enrichment?
This weekend, Saturday from 9 to 11, we've got a natural area cleanup at Western Green Park. So if you guys are interested in pulling weeds or cutting buckthorn, we'll be doing that. And then we are working through our park concepts with Parkitecture, and we're getting pretty close. We'll be bringing that to the Public Services Committee in 2 weeks. Oh yeah, the athletic complex tournaments are going. We've had 2 and they're going well, so.
Good, great. Any questions on any of the updates? If not, any other business to come before the village board work session? Raise them now. Or I would entertain a motion to adjourn this portion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll adjourn now and we'll restart at 6 o'clock with the regular board meeting. Here. Okay. Are you ready, Joel? Okay. We will call the regular village board meeting to order on Tuesday, May 6th at 6 PM. I would ask Joelle to note roll call, and I would ask Rebecca to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we go any further in the agenda, I just wanted to ask if people plan to appear or want to express an opinion from the public, there are forms out in the vestibule area to fill out. And then we will call your name as we get them. So if you can fill them out and either give them to Callie or give them directly to Callie, I'm sorry, Joelle, to Joelle or directly to me, that will be very helpful. So thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Sorry, I want to make a request to separate the 5.1.2.
Okay.
I would move to approve 5.1.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any, and is everyone who's in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.1.2.
I'm going to move to approve 5.1.2.
And is there a second?
Second.
And discussion?
A discussion on 9.10, item 9.10. It said that Tashidra abstained from voting. I just wanted to make sure that it was noted that she abstained from all discussion too.
Good
Okay.
point.
All right.
Do we need to accept that as a friendly?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to say yes, I accept that.
I'll second that.
I just wanted to make sure Joelle got it. That's what I was looking at. Okay, we have a motion and a second as amended, and I would ask all those in favor to signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for catching that, Jim. All right, we're going to go to public appearances. And I think we'll take the general public appearances first, and then we'll take 6.1. There's no objection. So we have Mimi, is that right? Or Hillary? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if I kill names.
Hi, I'm Mimi Hilly. I own a home at 440 Columbia Avenue, which is right across the street from the Holem Center. I do not have any prepared remarks. I attended the zoning meeting a few weeks ago and expressed my concerns about what their plans are. I have, since I bought my house 9 years ago, it has always been the Holem Center with the school district. In recent years, it's been incredibly quiet since they departed. I do believe that the building should have either remained with the school district, possibly become something for the village, or be zoned for residential housing. It is a quiet residential area with single-family homes. While I do not have any great concerns with having senior housing, I think senior housing generally will be very quiet for the area. I do have concerns with the number of people that will be put in that one block, from anywhere from, I believe, 80 to 100 units. It will significantly change the traffic and the noise in our neighborhood. So I do believe it should be zoned for residential. It sounds like that's not what the village is going to do, but I just wanted to express my concerns about that.
Okay, well, thank you, and I appreciate that. I only have one form. Is there anyone else who wishes to appear? Okay, if not, thank you, and we will open the public hearing on a proposed amendment to the future land use map in the Village of DeForest Comprehensive Plan affecting parcels northwest of the intersection of Dalmar Road and Tierney Crossing. Is there anyone who wishes to appear and speak to that amendment? Going once, going twice. If not, I will close the public hearing at 6:07. Thank you. We will move to presentations then. We have 3 presentations tonight. One is a 7.1 university presentation on scaling up the DeForest Dragon Arts Fair. Tricia, are you here?
Jan, I can introduce this. So for these 3 presentations that will occur at this point, as you know, we've been working in partnership with the university program, University Alliance. We had a handful, 11 total projects spanning from IT to marketing and journalism to civil engineering to sustainability, et cetera. Most of the courses and projects took place over the last semester here, and that's why you are seeing 3 of them. I think there were in total about 6 or 7 of them that were engaged. We were engaged in over the semester. So following the presentation, some of the presentations couldn't make it here tonight. We'll have a review and a summary of all the projects up on Engage the Forest. And then we have also a handful of projects for the upcoming fall semester too. So with that, I'll let the students presenting on the Dragon Arts Fair introduce themselves, and then we'll get right into the presentation.
Welcome.
We have a slide deck, yes.
You're going to have to speak close to the microphone and speak loudly.
Hello, everyone. Today we are presenting on the DeForest Dragon Art Fair Consulting Project. We're all part of the Bowles Center for Art Administration at UW-Madison. My name is Eliana.
My name is Gigi Christensen.
I'm Sam Weeks.
And I'm Sydney Prather.
The slides. Okay. So for the context for people who are not aware, I just touch it. Okay, good to know. Okay, thank you. So just to review what we're going to go through today, we have the context, the executive summary, and then some information about our methods of our study. So our focus group, survey, field research, and then of course our key findings and recommendations. Next slide. Oh, do you have? Okay, perfect. I'm going to go back one. Previous.
Apologies.
Yes. Okay. So the Dragon Art Fair is a juried annual arts and crafts fair of over 100 artists and vendors held on the first Saturday in June in Fireman's Park in DeForest. And it was originally created and run by Mary Prost and Julie Wills of the DeForest Arts Group. And they've been running that for the past 20 years. But in 2024, they transferred ownership to the Village of DeForest.
So a summary of our goals were to streamline vendor sign-up and management, vendors being those applying to the art fair, improving marketing efforts surrounding the fair, increasing audience size and attendee satisfaction, and to boost local economic impact to those selling outside of the fair. And the three methods in which we gather data were through a survey, a focus group, and field research.
So we did 2 focus groups. Our focus groups, we did our focus groups to gain information for the surveys we wanted to send out. And we did those with people from DeForest. We did have limitations due to the fact that we are not located in DeForest, but the people that we did the focus groups with were all residents of DeForest. We did them over Zoom, and we had a wide range of ages from 26 to 74, as well as marital statuses. We had single and married people and people with children and without.
Another research method we did was put out a survey, and some of you may have seen this flyer at some local cafes and businesses, but we really wanted to get as many respondents as possible to get as much data as we can analyze. So the survey questions addressed marketing, the art fair experience, as well as the engagement with local businesses outside of the fair. There were a total of 16 questions, and like I said, it was distributed physically in DeForest businesses, but also online through the DeForest Village newsletter and on the official Facebook page. And after 2 weeks, our survey yielded 38 responses. And there were some limitations, as though, like, of course, more responses are better, so we could have had more. And as well, we didn't explicitly ask respondents where they were located or what their zip code was. Although we can presume that where we posted the survey was in DeForest, so that would give us data, but we didn't necessarily have explicit zip codes.
So for our field research, we really focused on looking at CRMs in order to upscale how vendors registered for the fair. The previous fairs, it was done a lot through mail-in registration, and we wanted to streamline that process. So we looked at several different CRMs, such as HubSpot, Zapier, and Microsoft, as well as Salesforce. We wanted to make sure it was a user-friendly platform for the people who are registering, as well as staying within the budget and making it compatible with Excel. Some limitations we had there where we did reach out to some other organizations and similar fairs. We did not hear back from any of them to find out what they utilized, but we did look into other softwares.
So moving into our key findings, one of the things we found from our survey was vendor preferences. The top priority from our respondents was artistic variety, meaning a good mix of things like jewelry, prints, ceramics, as well as a good range of prices and product diversity. And they also indicated some interest in having interactive elements with vendors during the event. One thing we found was interesting was there's a pretty split opinion on the value of vendors being local to DeForest. Some people indicated it as their most important element, while others indicated it as the least important. So there could be elements for scaling further and inviting people outside of the direct DeForest area to come and vend and bring more support to the festival. We did also note that for local business engagement, 66% of attendees said they were unlikely to visit nearby businesses, but they would support things like pop-ups at the fair, or if they were to see social media posts in partnership with the fair, they may be more likely to attend. So these are some ways that we can see boosts in economic activity. And then in terms of planning, this is something we really wanted to focus on for marketing efforts. We found that 81% of attendees plan to attend the event somewhere between 1 week and 3 months prior to the event, as well as prioritizing sources such as the website, Facebook, and Instagram. So beginning with some of our recommendations, in terms of building community engagement, we recommend building a post-event survey for both vendors and for attendees to the event. For attendees, this can be distributed through the map that they receive at the event or on flyers throughout the event. And for vendors, this would be a way to gauge their experience and to make improvements based on those findings. We also believe that making booths available to local businesses would increase economic support and activity. So finding a section where they are able to sell or provide coupons or other interaction to encourage people to support local DeForest businesses. And we also believe that there's a disconnect for families here in DeForest. Some people indicated that they did not believe the festival was a family-friendly event. And one thing that may help to change that perspective is by converting the splash pad into a family zone. This would prevent concerns like water interacting with the artwork, while also providing a place that families are already familiar with for them to come and enjoy.
Some additional recommendations that came a lot from our survey were about when people decide to attend events. So for marketing, we recommend that the fair push awareness around 3 months before the event so people can mark their calendars. And then between the 3 months before the event and when the event actually happens, we recommend that the fair maintain a consistent social media presence through vendor spotlights and constantly reminding people that the event is coming up. And the final phase would be to initiate a main marketing push 1 week before the fair, and that's how they can most effectively capture audience attention.
And then we also aided in some of the visuals for marketing, one of these being the map that will be passed out at the fair. And we had an example from last year, and some revisements we wanted to make were just making it a bit more legible and accessible. And this looked like making the fonts a bit more readable or large, having a contrasting color scheme so that things were easily visible, as well as color coding food vendors versus art vendors.
Our recommendations for vendor registration, when we were looking at CRMs, we realized that a lot of the ones that are offered have a lot of bloat to them, and their price tags reflect that. And the exporting to Excel was something that was really important. So as we were going through and checking things off on what was offered, we realized that a lot of them didn't meet that criteria. And I was actually working on some stuff in my job and realized that Microsoft Forms, which was something that is already accessible to the village, has the capability of utilizing Power Automate and offering training sessions to help people who are used to sending in mail-in registration forms would be a recommendation that we would have as you move further away from that and try to streamline everybody into using digital registration. But Power Automate offers and Microsoft Forms is user-friendly, low cost. It's already included with DeForest's Microsoft, and it does automatically export to Excel.
Our final recommendation is to administer the post-event surveys that we brought up. So these would look like the attendees receiving digital and analog reminders of the survey. These could be distributed in a similar way as our initial survey through the village Facebook and other media channels, as well as emailing a post-event survey to vendors through the email that they registered with. This would allow the fair to really streamline and understand what the vendor experience is, how they're doing in terms of sales, and if this fair may be the best fit for them, or if it may be time to introduce new vendors into the rotation. And the goal would be to collect that data immediately following the fair to identify event successes as well as areas for improvement. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we'd be very happy to answer them.
Question, Rebecca?
Yeah, 2 things actually. One, I was surprised, I don't know if you saw my face, when you said some people didn't find it family friendly. I found that quite interesting, and I really appreciated the suggestions that you had about that. So that's something I think we need to definitely keep in mind moving forward. Overall, I really appreciated the work you guys put into this and the many suggestions that you had. I think many of them are very doable and would help incorporate, would be good to incorporate and to help streamline. I really liked the idea about the post-event survey for the vendors. Because so often, not every event that somebody goes to has that type of survey to find out what suggestions would they make to improve it, whatever it might be, you know, or were there problems getting, you know, registered or whatever the issues may have been, or, you know, just kudos to how it was run. So thank you. This was very informative and I really appreciated it. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Jim?
Yeah, and I thank you. I think it's real good work that you did. I guess I'm a bit curious about implementation. I'm assuming that's information or that you'll work with Tricia on, and I hope I've gone to everyone. I'm gonna actually miss this one, but I hope that you come to see it and bring your friends and tell them how family friendly it is. So thank you very much.
Bill, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so just on the implementation part, as we discussed, you know, how do we incorporate some of the suggestions and recommendations from each of the studies and presentations, and you'll hear some more. So we intend to continue on with them within each respective department. Each of the groups had assigned a liaison staff, so either a department head or a staff person who was directly in charge of a particular event or program or, you know, that process. And so we'll look at incorporating that in as part of our programming and process, and you'll see it pop up again as part of the strategic plan and as part of the budgeting process. So you'll see those implemented over time.
Okay. I wished you would have had more than 38 survey responses. So
We do believe a large part of that was due to the timing of the surveys, because it had been so long since the previous fair. Maybe it wasn't quite as on the forefront of people's mind. They didn't know what to say if they were to answer the survey. So we do believe those post-event surveys will really see a jump in support.
good, good. Okay, thank you. With that, we'll keep moving and we will go to the university presentation regarding financial forecasting model.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Ben Gorski. This is my group member, Ethan Wink. We're MSBA students at the University of Wisconsin, so that's the Business Analytics Masters. We worked with Carol over the course of the semester to create a budget impact tool that basically allowed people to enter hypothetical salary growth changes, new employee salaries, or loans into the current budget and see how it affects various constraints. So if you scroll down for a second, you can see how the mill rate changes, ERIP spending, and the change in tax rate based on your inputs. Additionally, we made another tool where you can enter TIF closing depending on the year and see how that also changes the budget. So just to keep it simple, we prepared a short scenario for you guys. So if we enter $200,000 for fire and EMS salaries in 2027, hypothetically, you know, hire a couple employees, 50,000 in benefits. And then if we close TIF 4 in 2027 and TIF 6 in 2028. Oh, one up. If you scroll up, you can see that the change in tax rate changes over depending on the year, and our ERIP spending, no, to the left. Oh. You want to go to the comparison database maybe? So basically you can hypothetically see how it will change the budget depending on your inputs. We used Excel macros so that it would be easier for people to use that don't necessarily have a lot of data analytics experience. But as you can see, these inputs, change the percentages. Maybe go in there and show them what there is first. So like if you look at 2028 and you zoom in. Which one? Oh, it's a little tricky with the zoom. Hold on. Did the macros enter? Yeah, you should have. Oh, you didn't enter a, yeah. You want to do that real quick? The mouse is a little sensitive. Yeah.
Here he comes.
Oh, it is? Okay, here. It might be helpful to, let's look at what the numbers are first before we enter it. So as you can see right now, the mill rate in 2028 is 5.25 and the ERIP is 250,000. And so we just can't have that number go negative to get the state funding. So now if we enter in this employee information, say in 2027, the 200,000 for the fire department. So 200,000, 50,000 for the benefits. Enter to the left. Yeah. So now when you scroll down, you can see, oh, I think it was the wrong year. Oh well. But you can see how the ERIP changes basically as you enter the different information in.
So you trigger the response by the numbers you're.
Yeah, basically what it allows you to do is to like input, different salaries or loan amounts in a year and see how it affects the budget as a whole. And you can do this for a loan or like when a TIF closes and that sort of thing. Yeah.
So you only entered two things. It already has everything else entered for
So
the
yeah,
budget.
the whole budget.
So this is, okay, what if we added one more employee or two more employees? How is that going to affect the budget and the mill rate?
Exactly.
And, okay. And then the same thing with the TIF, say if we closed it this year versus that year. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
makes sense.
And if everybody wonders why we're all staring down, this is the first night we have our computers down in our desk. So we're all like
Oh, okay.
kind of studying with different posture. Okay.
Go in the analysis tab. That's a tab that
Sure.
format they're used to seeing.
Yeah, this is tricky from a distance. There you go.
So what are you showing us?
So this is every year when maybe I need a microphone.
Here, you can take this. Let me.
Every year when we go through the budget process, I show you last year's numbers and then I show you the budget that has been prepared and is being recommended. And we get to the bottom where we see the actual impact on an average homeowner. So what we've done is we've essentially taken that format and spread it out farther into the future. So our hope is that we can start to see not only what your decisions today are doing to next year's budget, but how it may impact you and affect your decisions going out farther into the future. We want to make sure that we're not, hindering our ability to continue to keep that level tax rate, which is what we usually strive for, out farther into the future. We can make some short-term decisions that look good at the moment, but how will that hurt us later on? So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we tried to make it as user-friendly as possible so people could figure out how to use it. So Excel macros, I've never had any experience with them, but got to learn how to do that. Same with Ethan here. And basically, you just have to click a red button that we assigned a macro to, and it will change the budget for you. And we also made a button that just can clear all the edits you do, so that none of these changes are permanent. You can just clear it out and try other hypotheticals that you want to.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes, Bill.
So this is a fiscal analysis tool for folks like Carol that loves spreadsheets. And it's going to help us look at hypotheticals. We ask the question all the time, not only from this group here, but even before something is presented in a department budget, you know, we'll run those numbers across, you know, the budgets and see if it's reasonable or not. This is why it's going to be important to us as we talk about budget and moving forward is, you know, what is the level of service that this board desires? What is the acceptable mill rate? What is the acceptable increase? If it's different from the state levy limit, if it's different from the ERP. And then we can plug all those measures in those inputs paired with the additional inputs that we'll get from our service impact study to really determine you know, the rate of growth, the future impacts of the growth in services, cost of services, and then really watch out for, you know, kind of be aware of that need of going to referendum, which has been in the news often. And so again, this is striving towards a strategy of financial stability and sustainability.
Thank you.
And I wanted just to clarify, I misspoke and told them to enter 2027, but it was 2028. But when you do that, you can see the ERIP went from about $250,000 to $748. So you can see how that input changes this analysis tab and the mill rate. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good work. All right, we'll keep moving. Our next and final presentation is the university presentation regarding best practices for rural land acquisition and succession planning. Bill is going to introduce it and then we'll go through it. Yeah, you can pull up another chair.
Yeah, so I was a liaison of this group. This is a group coming out of the agriculture and applied economics course. I'll let them introduce themselves individually. But we had an opportunity here to really take a look at more of the kind of the social and aspect of where we as a village are going in the future, especially in a community that's a high growth community, and understanding some of the challenges that comes with development and expansion of the village. So I will turn it over.
Hello, my name is Griffin. I'm an agricultural and applied economics student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
I'm Madeline, and I'm the same. I'm Lauren, and I'm also an AAE major.
Yeah, so in understanding the context of the expected population growth in Dane County and kind of the ways that that will spill over into DeForest and other areas, we recognize that given the expansion constraints due to Windsor and Berks incorporation, DeForest is looking to kind of expand westward into land under the town of Vienna. And so our project was kind of looking into kind of the literature behind urban expansion into rural areas and sort of the best practices for coordinating and finding compromises with existing landowners in those areas. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, so we understand that DeForest is really interested in forming some meaningful connections with the stakeholders over in Vienna and kind of hearing what they have to say, getting some insights from them as both the town and the village plan for future growth. And also importantly, committing to sustainable development as the village grows, and especially with regards to the Yahara watershed and preserving and maybe improving water quality outcomes there. So the way we went about the project was to kind of get a balanced panel of opinions from both people in the area, as well as folks who work on farm succession, people from the UW Extension Program. We also talked to members of the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission and professors within our department and other departments and researchers at the university. And we did this through kind of like a set of interviews where we would send them information about our project and then some framing questions and kind of give them a sense of what information we were most interested in hearing from them. And then we would go interview them, take some detailed notes on what they had to say, collect any kind of resources or other contacts they might provide. And the other major component of our project was to conduct kind of that literature review that I mentioned earlier, which included those resources that we were recommended by the folks that we interviewed, as well as some that we found in our own research. And these included things like academic studies, kind of policy memos, articles, things like that. And we were sort of doing a meta-analysis of all these things to get some common themes and help inform our recommendations, which we'll provide through like a final report for you all.
Okay, so we kind of put our recommendations into 3 buckets. So communication guidelines for talking to the rural farm owners and other stakeholders as well, planning for growth, and then as Griffin was talking about, sticking to that sustainable development. So as for the communication guidelines, one thing that was stressed to us through the literature review and then also talking to people that were involved in the local community in that area was recognizing the sensitivity of the topic. A lot of those families have been there for a very, very long time and they view that place as their home. So any kind of change to that is going to come with a lot of weight. So transparency, confidentiality, and respect for the landowners was pretty huge in all of the sources that we looked at. Transparency, the people in that corridor, they can see the writing on the walls and they know what's kind of coming. So just being open and honest about the village's goals, where the village sees itself going, and what that means for them. Confidentiality is a huge piece in regards to land succession and land sales, as was talked to by a few local stakeholders. The sale of one land can impact land prices throughout, which has a huge ripple effect for decisions on selling land. So making sure that all conversations in regards to succession are framed with confidentiality first. So one thing that was suggested through us was kind of making this a personal connection between landowner and village administration. That handshake is really important, that small talk, just so that they feel that they are heard. And also fostering collaboration as early as possible. These kind of success stories take years to unfold. So just being there in the early stages, hearing them out, and also letting your voice be heard as well. Another thing that is pretty interesting, especially to this area, is a commitment to preserving some rural characteristics, whether that be certain features of the land that those landowners view as very important to their home and family. And then also preserving kind of some of the economic ways, whether that be through a farmer's market or something like that, and showing appreciation. So as for our growth plans, there's a few rural urban fringe problems that might come up. So just preparing on how to deal with those, which will be further listed in our final report. That can be things such as traffic congestion once we have kind of homes sprawling into places where tractors might be on the road, smell mitigation, things like that. So just keeping that in mind as DeForest continues to grow in that area. Another thing that is pretty important is accommodating for a mix of housing budgets. As a lot of jobs are coming in, a mix of blue collar, white collar, there's going to be a lot of different budgets. So something interesting that we learned through this project is when urban kind of continues to grow towards rural areas, this changes how the rural landowners tend their lands a lot of times. So they'll switch from low value crops like corn and soybean to high value crops, whether that be like fruit, vegetables, flowers, things like that. So finding ways to incorporate that into the city, whether that be through relooking in ordinances on who can be a vendor at certain things. Again, like hammering in the farmer's market just to show appreciation and accommodation for those changes. Another thing that was recommended to us was increasing agricultural awareness. A lot of the rural communities feel as if they aren't appreciated and no one understands what they do when they move to this kind of area. So whether that be investing into FFA and 4-H just to increase the awareness around that way of life. So as for our conservation, the environment can be marketed as a very attractive asset to attract new people. That can be a lot of green spaces, parks. People want to live in a place where they can interact with the environment, especially as beautiful as it is here. And so also these natural resources can help aid in development, housing plans, and stormwater and things like that. So we were pretty pleased to see that a lot of the new development does have a really strong commitment to conservation and utilizing natural resources. And so just continuing that with growth forward.
And then as part of like our final report, we recommended a few different strategies of reaching out to these rural landowners. And these were 5 of like our main questions that we put together. So the first being, what characteristics do you find important to the legacy of your land? So that's going back to preserving that rural identity and culture, and preserving the mentality of place versus space, and realizing that like the weight and sensitivity of this topic and how people have lived there for generations.
Can you pull your mic closer?
So sorry, yeah. The second is, how do you view ongoing changes that you've experienced in the community? So this goes back also to preserving that rural identity, and the importance of incorporating the various identities and cultures that have been in existence, and incorporating that into the new landscape that will be created. And then the third one is, how do you think that the land around you will change in the next 5 years? This kind of hones in on the importance of the dichotomy between like development and rural landowners, as well as that third component of conservation, how those 3 can work harmoniously to create an effective landscape. And then the fourth is, how have conservation techniques affected the way you view or use your land? So creating that connection with the landowners is really important. And one way that we found is through conservation. So understanding how people have used their land and how they can continue to build on the current conservation techniques that they already have been using. And that also kind of offers you an in onto how you can appeal to those landowners when you're looking to purchase land on the side of development. And then what long-term goals do you have for your land? This mostly just goes for like succession. So understanding the different ideas people have, if they're interested in selling it for development, if they're interested in preserving it as a natural parcel, or if they are interested in passing it down to future generations. And so with the guidelines that we've created, in our report, and we have a more expanded version of this presentation. So if anyone's interested, I'm guessing Bill will send that out. But so we hope that DeForest is able to use these guidelines to ease the stress on the community of DeForest, current land expansion into the town of Vienna. And then we also hope that these findings will be useful for any future like development or changes to like zoning and ordinances to help create a more harmonious landscape within these, I would say, contradicting, but hopefully they will come to be more in one, these ideals of like what an effective community would be.
Okay. Did we got through all of it. Do we have questions? How many people did you interview?
I think we interviewed six or seven, and then kind of like speaking on like the barriers, I think that's important too, is that a lot of people, during this time of the year, especially people more focused on like farming, like we wanted to reach out to the Yahara Pride Farms, and we were not able to get a hold of them just because of the time of the season. It's busy going into the farming season. And then kind of the sensitivity of the topic, a lot of people were hesitant to talk with us about it. So we have recommendations on how DeForest can like go forward. And then we have additional contacts that we hope that you guys can use. But we were able to have about, like 6 or 7 interviews between like the academic and industry professionals and experts. And then they were able to like give us more like sources for like reading and different case studies that we were able to look into.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. That's good information and a difficult topic, so you were brave. Thank you. All right, we will continue. There is no old business, so we'll move on to new business. Next item is just 9.1, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-018, an ordinance to amend future land use map in the Village of DeForest Comprehensive Plan affecting parcels northwest of Tierney Crossing and Delmar Road intersection. Mark and Alex are.
So Mark is attending virtually, so whoever's got the controls here. I'm not sure if anybody from the development team is attending virtually either, but they're not in the room, so I'm assuming they're online. But I'll kick it over to Mark.
There's Mark.
Thanks, Alex. So this item and the next item are related to a relatively small development, but one that will increase the supply of single-family lots available in the village. You may have read that we are down to about 20 lots for sale within the Village of DeForest, which is entirely too low. This is a proposed development that would be on the southwest corner of the village, directly southwest of the Springs at DeForest Continental proposal that the board saw very recently. It would develop 12 single-family lots on 2 private courts. It is technically not in an area that's currently planned for housing, but it is adjacent to an area that's planned for housing. And that's the reason for the recommended comprehensive plan change to redesignate this land from shopping and services or commercial uses to a designation that would enable housing. And that's the purpose of this ordinance. I can probably cut to the chase with the next item. The next item on the agenda is the implementation of that plan change, which would enable a rezoning to planned unit development, which is being proposed due to the fact that a few of these lots do not have frontage on a public street and have setbacks that are less than our smallest zoning district allows. And secondly, the proposal would share a planned unit development, preliminary development plan to set the initial ground rules for how that area would develop. And thirdly, that second ordinance would approve a preliminary plat, which is the subdivision for the land. And I'll be happy to answer questions on as you work your way through 9.1 and 9.2. Thank you.
Okay, Rebecca.
I don't know if you need a motion on this or not. I'm going to go ahead and move to approve, but I do have some questions.
Are you approving 9.1 or 9.2?
I'm sorry. 9.1.
Okay. We have a motion to approve 9. Who walked in?
Mike Lawton is on the call from the development team. He's got his hand up.
Hey, Mike, you have your hand up. Well, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll move to further discussion. You want to hear from Mike first, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's hear from Mike first.
I just want to answer questions.
I'm sorry?
I just want to answer questions if there are any. That's all. Joe Goldsworthy, our engineer, is also
Okay.
online.
All right. When your
Thank
hand
you.
was up, we thought you maybe wanted to speak. Okay.
So I actually don't have any problem with this, but I did have some questions as far as the actual, because we're going to have, I mean, we've got Fleet Farm there, we've got the commercial, then we've commercial property areas, and we've got the proposed or the development for the apartments, and then these houses. You said 12 single families. Is that correct? Okay. I guess my biggest concern out of all of it is location. In terms of how marketable is that going to be for a single family home in that type of a setting? Other than that, I don't have any problem with this. I'm just a little concerned is all, as far as, are these going to be market rate? Are they going to be more affordable? That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Rebecca, I can try to address those questions.
Go ahead.
So they're intended to be market rate, single family homes. And they're being developed, they will be developed or built by different builders, but sold by and developed by Don and Jerry Tierney. Don and Jerry did a similar development in Wanakee that you can visit. And it's high value standard, typical single family homes. This parcel is uniquely positioned in that it's between Tierney Crossing and the county natural area to its west that is around the Yahara River. And therefore, the backyard of this development will never be developed and will always be permanent green space. So it provides a reasonable transition for a lot that would, or an area that would otherwise be challenging to develop commercially because it's a little bit away from 19, and because the depth of the area between Tierney Crossing and the county land is about 220 or so feet, which is relatively narrow for commercial development.
That's really good to hear about that. As far as the parkland, the people who would be living there would be able to walk out to it, or is it just inaccessible?
No, it's accessible. There's 4 lots that would have direct access that it would directly abut it. And both to the north and the south of this development are public outlots. The primary purpose of those outlots is stormwater management, but they'll have so to speak, shelves where people can move their way westward to get into the county lands.
And I guess just my very last question is related to, since it's going to be right there near park land, not necessarily where you have a kids park, but is this something where we would be potentially requiring any type of park impact fees or a park, like a small park for use in that general area?
Well, there will definitely be park land impact fees and park improvement impact fees because there is no proposed public park or improvement of public park here.
Okay.
The comprehensive outdoor recreation plan does advise a public park north to northwest of the Continental project. The village doesn't control that land yet, but it is definitely a need within this area to get public park space, and it's on the radar of the village with respect to its park plan.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And just to give the other side of that position, I was thinking when I looked at it, what a great place to raise kids with lots of things to do outdoors. And so I thought, well, a lot of people would like to be out and not on a farm, but in a more kind of rural setting. I also heard from a Wanakee board member, they want that land for a big box store. And I think this is a much better use. So I like the idea of this. Anything else? If not, we have a motion and a second. I would ask all those in favor to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh.
Motion carries. Item 9.2, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-019, an ordinance approving a rezoning planned unit development, preliminary development plan, and preliminary plat for the Bolig addition to Yahara Gateway, single-family residential development northwest of the Tierney Crossing and Delmar Road intersection, Village of DeForest, Dane County, Wisconsin. We've discussed this. I would entertain a motion. Motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. We have a hand. Go ahead, Jim.
Mark, I just wanted to raise a question. I know there was discussion at the planning and zoning on this. I didn't see a whole lot of changes. Is there anything that it has changed since planning and zoning? And one thing that I noted is on the improvement plans, it showed what I call like a raised driveway type approach rather than a flush road. Was that discussed, or are we just seeing what was pre-planning and zoning?
You're just seeing what was pre-planning and zoning. In other words, they have not attempted to change the plans between that meeting and this meeting. On that subject, Jim, we do have that advice provided by P&Z to instead of having a ramp up to get into these courts, to have it more as a continuous blacktop, like is going to happen with the Continental proposal further north. And I think folks are on board with that idea. We also have, as conditions of approval in the ordinance, particularly as you go to, there's a lot going on in this ordinance, but as particularly as you go to page 2 of the ordinance in section 3, there's a condition 2B that addresses the court entrance, and specifically talks about that opportunity for flush and continuous with the Tierney Crossing pavement. And then we also have a condition 2E, which was discussed at P&Z, to make sure that all landscaping and fencing along Tierney Crossing creates some unity and a continuous appearance rather than having a chain link fence here and a cedar fence here and something else on the next lot over. So those were incorporated into the ordinance based on P&Z recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much for that update, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of this proposal. Thank you.
Rebecca, and then Bill.
Just one little question on Exhibit B on page 13. I'm looking at the preliminary plat of Bolig Edition, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm seeing a gray line through that kind of goes across the road and through several of the lots. Is that part of the river?
No.
What is that?
It's the drainage divide between what part of this development will go to the north outlot for stormwater and what part will go to the south outlot.
Thank you. That was helpful. And then those outlots, outlot 1, outlot 2, I'm assuming that's kind of like a cul-de-sac, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
There'll be private courts. They'll be maintained by the association.
Okay, thanks.
Bill, you had your hand up?
My concern is what's going across the street. We don't know. Just falls back to a Seinfeld episode where they had a chicken joint with a flashing red sign. Off my deck, I used to see the Walgreens red sign, and it was pretty annoying. And thankfully it burned out, or they don't turn it on anymore. That's 4 blocks away. This isn't an area for residential. Yeah, we okayed the apartments. I didn't agree with that. The apartments should have been farther north. It's on a busy road. I'm not in favor of changing the comp plan the 3rd time in 2 years. It's the reason we bumped up changing the comp plan the last time was because we kept changing it. The houses are close together. I wish success, but I don't agree with the location. We do need single family housing, but not there.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. 9.3, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-020, an ordinance approving a rezoning and planned unit development preliminary development plan for residential redevelopment of the former Holum Education Center site, Village of DeForest, Dane County, Wisconsin. I believe we have developers here.
Yeah, we do have some representatives from the development team, if you guys want to come up or whoever, just to be able to answer any questions, but Mark will kick off the introduction.
Yes, thank you, Alex and Jean. So this is a 3.8 acre site. Everyone knows it. It's just east of where you are right now. It's the proposal is to redevelop this site, remove the buildings and other improvements on the property, and replace them with a few buildings, all for housing, to address local housing needs. The proposal includes a 60-unit, 2-story senior apartment building, roughly in the area of the main parking lot of the current or former Holem Center. To its east, a 24-unit, 2-story rental apartment building with 24 units, and 4 duplex buildings to its south, sort of transitioning to the single-family homes that are on this same block. The proposal was set up by the redevelopment plan and comprehensive plan that were adopted in 2023. The redevelopment plan envisions a mixture of housing types, the removal of the older building and all the old infrastructure in and on the site to accommodate that. I advised that reusing that site would not be viable. It also advised that the degree of subsidy required to make this suitable or possible for single-family homes would be cost prohibitive. We've got a couple of old buildings. We've got underbuilding or underground structures. The buildings possibly have some asbestos or other contamination in it. It's going to cost a lot of money to get this site redeveloped. The plan also suggests that keeping the building where it is not viable. Very old infrastructure. It may make sense for use for a little while, but as soon as the boiler blows or the roof leaks substantially, there's a major expense that it would be questionable what could cover it. Public space. This area is already blessed with a lot of public space within a couple of blocks. Fireman's Park, the playground for Eagle View Elementary, being just the nearest, but there are others certainly in the area. So the redevelopment plan does advise redevelopment. This project is consistent with that. It pushes the buttons for the workforce housing and senior housing. Workforce, I think it's important to keep in mind. We're talking about teachers. We're talking about firefighters, line workers, managers of commercial developments that people shop at here in DeForest. Rent levels, developer can speak more to this, $1,000 on up for sure. So it's important to understand what we are getting here and what we wouldn't be getting here. The general notion and idea with the development is to try to respect the neighborhood. We have 2-story housing, not several-story housing. Traffic designed to be spread across the streets, not on just one street. And a design set of standards that, in particular, this plan unit development would help us implement. The reason they're proposing plan unit development zoning are two. The maximum density within the village's densest residential zoning district is currently 17 to 18 units per acre. They're proposing 24. That is a density that's consistent with the comprehensive plan, but we don't yet have a zoning district to accomplish that. There is a secondary reason they're proposing to redivide this land. There may be setbacks within the village's multiple family zoning district that are difficult to accomplish if that were instead used. Redevelopment is unfortunately not common in DeForest, or hasn't been for the past 20 years. It brings its own challenges, certainly blending with the neighborhood, construction, traffic, other things that, will be, a change absolutely for this property. But I think the future of this site is not the past. It's not going to be public land. It's not going to be the predominantly office use it was. So the goal of the redevelopment plan and the comprehensive plan is, what next and what could add value to the neighborhood and the community. Given its proximity to schools, to police, to fire, to coffee shops, the library, a whole host of other amenities, a mix of housing types was determined to be the best fit when the village updated its plans in 2023. And this proposal delivers that. So what we have before us tonight is an ordinance that would establish the zoning for this property, a planned unit development zoning, and set what we call a preliminary development plan, which establishes the initial ground rules for density, types of development, and layout. What would happen after this is that the developers would be responsible for bringing more detailed plans to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So at that point, you'd see detailed landscape plans of exactly how these buildings would look, and how the site would function in a greater level of detail than we have here today. So with that, I'll close my opening comments, but be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, and before we have further discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. I would entertain questions. Bill?
Couple questions for the developer and a couple questions for administrator. I'll throw the easy one out. The alley traffic was a concern. To restrict that, I've seen different variations of it. I understand the concept of why we need that to go north. If it becomes a problem, how are you guys going to deal with it? How's your management company going to deal with it? Because somebody in that apartment building is going to take that as a shortcut, and somebody else is going to see it and go, I can do that too. You can have all the signs in the world say do not enter, but it could be a problem. Do you have a plan for that? Maybe a post in the road in the middle of the summer or a gate?
Yeah, you're spot on, and that's a great question. Our goal is to either have some sort of gate or a chain or something where for the majority of the months when there's no snow on the ground, that's not to be accessed, because we frankly don't want our residents to be driving through that. So the goal is to find a way to not just sign it off, but to actually physically stop people from being able to use that outside the winter months and really when the plows are going through.
Good. The stormwater, I was watching the P&Z meeting. I mean, that's a concern. You don't have a concrete plan on what you're going to do with all that water that comes off those buildings. My vision of it is that hill's going to get mowed down off of Holland Street on the southwest corner. Pretty much in it. Is there going to be a pond there, or is there going to be a dry pond?
So there's probably going to be a couple bioretention ponds on this, and this is something we'll finalize before we come back to the SIP submittal per your guys' guidelines. But we've had D'Onofrio, who does a lot of work in the village and around Dane County, take a look at this. And there's a different site plan that maybe has a little bit more detail than the one on your screen, but there's probably going to be a bioretention just to where the alley and phase 3 are. So that'll catch a little bit of the stream coming down. And that'll probably move south down the side there to the Holm Ave one. And then below phase 1, there's also going to be more than likely another bioretention pond there that'll be sized appropriately. So essentially where the water is going to shed is that'll probably go into 2 different ones. Again, our engineers are going to work diligently and make sure that it actually meets any DNR standards and your guys' standards. So that'll be something that we'll look diligently into, because it is a very steep site and could pose a couple tricks in that.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys, that's a challenge, but I'm sure the engineers will figure that out. In the previous discussions, we were trying to figure out how to do all this financing. You're not asking the village for any assistance?
We would like to discuss at some point using the affordable housing funds from a TIF excess amount for the project, but I think that's a conversation that we'll have as we move towards the SIP level.
Okay, are you going after grants from the state, WIDA, Dane County?
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna turn over every stone there is. We'll definitely use probably WIDA tax credits, the WEDC blighted site grant. We'll go after the Dane County Affordable Housing Funds. Really, any source of funding that we can find, we want to make sure we put it into this to bring the best project possible.
So you're gonna take vouchers then?
It's not a Section 8 building. Legally, if there's a Section 8 floating voucher that goes into it, we have to accept it, but it's not a Section 8 project. It's not government subsidized. It's gonna be all AMI driven.
But just some of those grants require that though?
None of our grants require us to take.
Oh, okay, okay. Thanks for clearing up. Yeah, I was really happy with the last plan and I'm not as happy with the density increase. I understand to make money, you need more, and apartment buildings do it. The informational meeting, I'll pose this at you and then,
And after this question, we're going to give two other people a chance. We'll come back to you, Bill.
okay. Yeah, this is the last question for him. The informational meeting was a disaster in notifications of the surrounding people. And this is my concern, and this put me over the edge, is they didn't know anything about it. I knew about it. I chose to play cards that Wednesday night because I knew most of it. But these people didn't know that. And I see that as a failure. And I've been to these meetings before, and it was important for everybody to know. And I just see it as a failure. Okay.
How was the meeting notified?
Yeah, I'd be happy to clarify that. And to your point, Bill, so we use a third-party service that designs our mailers and they buy the mailing list from, I think, USPS. We've already reached out to them on that to try and figure out where our mailers went and why it didn't exactly hit the surrounding area. We did try and bump it up to a 400-foot radius as opposed to the minimum that I think is like 50 feet. There's about 40 mailers that are sent out, but to your point, we're not trying to sneak this through. The goal is not to have a neighborhood meeting that nobody shows up to, because frankly, it makes our lives a little bit harder. We want to have the back and forth with the neighbors, and that was our intent. And to your point, I think we could have done a better job of that.
Thank you for clarifying it. There's a bunch of your neighbors in the back, and they're all saying we didn't get any notification of the meeting. So we'll have to deal with that. Do you have questions? I'm sorry? Pardon me? No, I don't. Okay.
Could I make a comment to that point?
Yes.
Thank you. We as staff encourage the neighborhood meeting. It's not a requirement of the ordinance. It's unfortunate that the notices didn't go to all the neighbors. We as the village did notify the neighbors of the public hearing.
Yes.
For the planning and zoning hearing. So the legal notice has absolutely been taken care of for this project, just to be clear.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you. I'm kind of like what Bill is. I liked the previous proposal. I thought it was a really nice balance and density. Most of it and this one I'm not necessarily opposed to, but I am concerned primarily with building 3. Building 1, which is the senior housing, I don't think that's going to cause the types of issues. I know we had someone speak earlier during the public appearances, and I know there's been other people who have expressed these types of concerns. I've heard from some, other people have heard from other people, where the traffic is a concern, okay? And some noise issues, potentially. I don't know that I'm convinced on the noise issues, but I am concerned about the potential traffic issues. Because we've got 20, is it 24 in building 3? Is that right? 24 units?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so are they all surface parking or is there any underground parking?
There is underground under that entire building, so.
And the way they would get into their parking would be from Columbia Street, or would they also have access from Holum, snake around and then go in that way?
Yeah, they would have access from both sides. So the kind of the snake drive through that helps mitigate the grade, but you'll be able to come off of Columbia. You can kind of see just to the right of the phase 2, there you can
Right.
see the garage coming in there. So there's
And
no,
then there's also, I see some surface parking.
that's also,
Okay, now is that for the building 3 or is that for the building 1?
that's for building 3.
Okay,
There's
and is,
surface parking between the 2 phases of the building 1 there, so that kind of
Okay.
right in the middle of the U, that's more for building 1 and 2, and then building 3 is specifically those spots on the surface lot there.
and then the duplexes, it appears that there's garages for those, is that correct?
Yes, 2-car garages for each.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I guess my other concern is access to Holum Street, as far as you got Washington Street on one side, you've got, which is just not that far. And then you've got, I forget what the name of the other, Cleveland, is that Cleveland? Okay. So, I mean, you've got those very close proximity. You're not going to have any kind of signage. You're not going to have the ability to have a sign that says, hey, stop, let people in and out. But there and up on Columbia Street, which I see as some potential headaches, especially at certain times of the day. I don't know if these are issues that you guys have considered in terms of, I'm assuming, can you remind me, is there street parking on Columbia? Okay, so I'm just concerned that we have 24 units, and I'm assuming there's not going to be more than 24 parking stalls, or is there 1.5?
I believe it's 24 underground spots for that one, and then I think the 6 to the side of it, so it's over 1-to-1
Yeah.
ratio there.
Yeah, okay. I'm concerned because there's going to be some units that are going to have 2 vehicles. Yeah, and so I'm concerned with what's going to happen on Columbia Street. That's probably my biggest concern. I'm not so much as concerned on the Holum side, but I am concerned about the effect that is going to happen with parking, with cars, a lot more traffic. And I know there's a lot of kids in that area. Plus you've got the school half a block away. So that's my concerns. I'm not opposed. I'm right on the fence. So it's really going to depend on how this all works out in the end. So.
Right.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, Jim?
Mark, I think I'm going to pose this as a question to you, but it's a bit of a comment too, sort of what Rebecca was saying about. And I wonder, Mark, if you can talk about what the next procedures are, because what I'm hearing is there's a lot of concerns, which to me potentially can be addressed with engineering as far as like restricting street parking on, say, Holm Street to make sure that it's safe for people to exit. And I wonder, say, when we get in looking at the traffic and maybe queuing for people trying to get out on Holm Street, if there might be, say, a left in and left out and a right out, so that people don't get queued up too much. If that is an issue, could be something to look at. I personally don't think it'll be an issue, but it could be something, again, to look at. And as far as additional parking, I see a couple sort of green spaces that could be additional parking if we don't meet the ordinances, or if it's a concern, we can definitely request more parking at planning and zoning, I believe. And Mark, please feel free to correct me if anything I said was wrong.
Sure. So in terms of parking, they're at about 1.5 spaces per unit on the whole. It's not clear to me whether that would even require any kind of flexibility from standard requirements of the village. It depends on the number of bedrooms we would see in these units. And, you know, with respect to the building that's labeled phase 2 on the screen you're seeing right now, we don't have a precise number of bedroom counts for that building. Maybe Danny has more information. So if you have 3 bedrooms, obviously units, you're going to have more cars than if you have 1 bedrooms and studios. So that will matter. Secondly, with respect to parking, we have in the ordinance, I would say a suggestion at this point to see whether there are opportunities for parallel parking on an slightly expanded or widened private road, that snaking road as people are talking about through the development, particularly south of the phase 2 building. So we've asked the developer to look at that. You know, the challenge, as you know, with this site is that it's higher along Columbia Avenue than it is along Holland Street. So the slope has to be absorbed somewhere. And that will be a design issue, an engineering issue that needs to be resolved. The third issue with respect to parking and traffic, you know, if I think about how I'd or where I'd want to go with a car after I leave this site, my supposition is it's mostly east and west along Holland Street, which, you know, gets you someplace, so to speak. Columbia Avenue is 3 blocks long before you hit the school or the area near the railroad tracks in the downtown area. Given where you see the driveways to the underbuilding parking for each of the phases, I would suspect that we will see the most, you know, traffic going down to Holland Street immediately to get there. To that point, we do not have detailed engineering for how that will look. This is the preliminary development plan, general layout concept. Do we accept the project in its entirety in general? And then what they'll have to do is come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with more specific plans that will include engineering details for how that intersection will work at Holum and that main driveway, for example. Parking restrictions could definitely be part of that. I can't imagine any parking would be allowed among those 4 driveways that you see on Holum and for a certain distance beyond those. So those are all things that would be addressed at the time. The village is, regardless of what they propose, the village is in control of parking on its streets. So whether it's on day 1 or day 201 of this development, the village would have the ability to manage or change parking rules on the streets, depending on concerns that may or may not arise. I hope I addressed all your comments, Jim, but if I didn't, I'm happy to elaborate.
You did. Thank you very much.
Mark or developers, one of the concerns that's been raised with me a couple of times is the ability for people to access garages through the alleyway, where some people go in to the alley to get to their property. And I know you talked about putting a gate up in the winter so people wouldn't try and cut through there. But I think it's important, and maybe this is a village question, that we keep that alley open. And I don't know, there's no trash removal back there, but it needs to be plowed and cared for so people can get in and out.
I believe it will be open.
I can comment. First of all, this isn't the greatest picture that you're looking at to understand what's going to happen with the alley. And Bill picked up on this in some of his earlier comments. Still not there. It's going to be later on. But in any case, there is a proposed route. So like it happens today, a plow will be able to drive into the alley, plow the alley because it's a public alley, and then drive straight and not have to back out of the alley, but instead go north. And there you see it a lot better. So that's the proposal right now. And so the design challenge is how do we make that movement that public services wants to be able to happen without making this a shortcut into the development through the alley, which is not really designed as a driveway to get to a residential development project. So, you know, the idea of a summertime, you know, bollard in the middle of that driveway that could be, you know, broke down, or some sort of gate. Those are details, again, picking off on Jim's comments, that we will work out with the developers during the second and the final development plan phase that will come to the Planning and Zoning Commission in the coming months.
Yes, Judd.
I can just add to that. Greg and I think Craig Matthews from Veerbecker met with their development group on this exact topic when this was coming forward. I don't know, 3-4 months ago, I guess, whatever it was. And are addressing, we need to have some way to get through to plow so we don't have to back up, and then someplace to store snow, right? When it comes from that alley, you can't just dump it into one. So that's where that green space was designed. That's a little to the west, where the alley ends, so to speak, right? There can be some snow storage there, because they'll have a need on their end as well for some storage. And we only get one snow event a year nowadays, so that's good.
You never know. So my other question, and it was a question that came to me, is there a concern that those residents have in the, what is it, the southeast corner? Boy, that was good for me. Thanks, guys. With runoff, and will they see drainage problems coming in through your yard? And I know we've talked about stormwater, but it's a question and a concern. And when your engineers look at it, I think paying particular concern so that we don't have residents who now have a water problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've met with, she was one of the ladies who came to the neighborhood meeting. We talked to her about that, and that'll be something we'll just make sure our engineers are designing so that all stormwater is contained on our site.
Okay, all right, that's important. Yes, Bill.
Question for Bill. Well, it was legally noticed. 3 places that's legal notice. Some of the people got postcards, some didn't. I know in the past we've talked about in controversial things that we'd extend 100 feet to 200 feet. That's previous discussions. I haven't followed up on that. There's persons that were kitty cornered to this project, 100 feet property to property line, did not get noticed. I mean, do you put a thing in the middle and go like that, or do you go from the property line like that? I've heard that from some of these people. I've been talking to these people for the past 2 years to let them know this was coming, to get their ideas in. Some of them came to the public hearing, and they're supposed to be given 5 minutes at the public hearing, and they were given 3. The timer said 3 minutes. They should have been given 5 minutes. So we need to do a little better communication, and public hearings is 5 minutes.
So I think you're talking about, I just want to make sure I clarify what you're talking about here, because we've been talking about several different meetings tonight. One, the neighborhood information meeting, which is not required by ordinance. It's it's a recommendation by staff to have that. Therefore, does not have any legal requirements distance-wise. In regards to the public information meeting, it depends on whether that was an official hearing as required by the code. And depending on whether that was for the redevelopment plan or whether that was for the rezoning. So again, all of those parameters, the distances are set up by ordinance, which is guided, I believe, advised by state statute. And so I believe those parameters have been followed in regards to the public hearing notice.
Just so to clear that up to the neighbors, because there is some concern.
Yeah,
some didn't get postcards.
Yeah, the Holcomb Education Center site obviously has been decommissioned for quite some time. And so there's been this whole process, including redevelopment planning, which then made its way into a comprehensive plan, which then guides the future zoning of this area and so on and so forth.
And I know this is part of our communication strategic plan is better communications. We've heard this not only here, but on the F word last spring or last winter. Oh, we didn't know until last minute. I mean, it's their responsibility to look at the meetings, the agendas, see what's up.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue that we run in, not only with this project, but with anything we push out on, whether it's Engage the Forest or any social media websites. I don't think that we can push out enough to capture everyone. We try our best to put it on multiple streams. And yeah, that is true. We do have to have some level of engagement from the community too, to make it a kind of two-way communication, right? We continue to work on that, and I hope that we're improving that process. What I'm hearing from you, Bill, that we can hire another communications person come in this budget. So we'll take a look at that.
Very good, Bill.
Hey, thank you. Slippery, Bill.
Rebecca.
That was good. Let's say we pass this tonight. What does that mean moving forward? What's the next steps? What's the next step after that? In other words, what should we expect from this? Does this just make it possible for, what is this actually doing?
So I think I'm gonna take a stab at this, and Mark's gonna correct me likely. So the item on the agenda this evening is in regards to the rezoning, the preliminary plat the rezoning and the plan unit development for the preliminary development plan for this project. That is all guided by comprehensive planning and the redevelopment plan. So that's the decision that you have before you this evening. That establishes the zoning and the pre-development plan, the PUD for the property.
So it's not actually, or maybe it is. It's not actually approving the plan. It's making the zoning so that a plan can be implemented. And the plan still needs to go through all the approval processes and all that stuff. So it's kind of the first big step.
It is.
Or to even.
It is the first big step. You are, by your vote this evening, you will be establishing the zoning for the property and the general plan.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just add that it works both ways. It establishes the zoning to do something similar to what you're seeing on screen right now. It doesn't establish the zoning to add another story, to convert the senior housing to general housing, to cut the parking back. So it protects both the developer in knowing that they can proceed forward with detailed plans that are along these lines. And it protects the village and the neighborhood by not writing a blank check for what they could do on the property.
And that
the
means.
I'm sorry,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, Mark. I was just going to say that provides opportunity for input in several steps along the way. So this is not the last kick at the cat, if I may use that term, for residents and for members of the board.
That's correct. And to answer Rebecca's second part of her question, the next step would be to take the general outlines that you see in your packet today, develop detailed architectural plans, detailed stormwater plans, seek out opportunities for additional parking, look at transportation access and how these private streets interact with the public street network. All of the things you've talked about today would be considered and brought forward in a set of very detailed plans that the Planning and Zoning Commission would review sometime in the next few months. It depends on the developer's pace and interest in how quickly they want to move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
One more from Jim.
I just wanted to make clear too that, Mark, again, I'm going to put you on the hook in case I say anything wrong, but this is approving this preliminary plan. And there's lots of opportunities to tweak it, like we said, but if the developer comes forward with a very similar plan or maybe even match it exactly, it could be setting us up for liability if we decide to not approve it at the final. So that's where this is a big and important step.
It
where
is.
they're giving the guarantee that the money they're spending on engineering and everything else and trying to secure their grants is not going to be ill spent.
Thank you for
That's
that clarification. That was very helpful.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I would ask all, and is everyone clear on what we're voting on? Okay. I would ask all those in favor to signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Oh,
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, 9.4, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-021 and ordinance approving a rezoning preliminary plat and final plat for the first addition to Bueller Farm, mixed residential development or parcel 0910-321-0375-1, Village of DeForest, Dane County, Wisconsin. Okay, and this is Mark and Alex show again. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I would open the floor for any discussion or comment by staff.
I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Bill?
question for Mark. This is going to be RM6 zoning, correct?
Yeah, the western block along Scarlet would be RM6, which is our densest single-family district.
That was already approved, correct?
It was approved, Bill, on the opposite side of Scarlet. So this would have both sides. of
Okay.
Scarlet. Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Is there any way of a new zoning instead of using RM6? Because RM6 is, I was opposed to that because in my neighborhood, that was created for a particular problem.
Yeah.
And I understand the smaller lots and things like that, but in the future, can we develop a new zoning classification for something like this?
We could. The village has about 30 zoning districts already. My hope is that we can make some of them work and maybe more flexible. So what P and Z will see at the end of this month and what maybe the board will see as soon as next month is a proposal to make various zoning districts fit better to the comprehensive plan and their purpose. You're right, Bill. We tortured that district a little bit by applying it to this area the way it's written currently. I'm hopeful that you'll have a look and agree that the changes to the RM6 district might make it a suitable district for not only, the older parts of town, but also for new development that, has a lot of similar would have a lot of similar characteristics and house size, setbacks, yard sizes, things like that.
Very good. Yeah, I'd rather see this in apartment buildings, so I'll be supporting it.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9.5, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-049, a resolution authorizing the village's request to the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission to amend the Northern Urban Service Area to encompass lands along the west side of County Highway I, south of Zoe Lane, all right. Parcel number 090914480066-1.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or discussion?
Just a little bit.
Yes.
So I believe we are just making the motion to go to CARPC. We're not talking about the zoning. Is that part of the application and the land use of it?
So this is just a recommendation to urge, to allow us to submit the application for the urban service area. It is not associated with zoning. There will be requests coming in the future if the this is brought in to the urban service area for a certified survey map to split the lot, rezoning, and then a potential site plan in the future.
Okay. I'm for the submittal to CARPC. I did note in the staff report, it talked about industrial lands, and I noticed on the comprehensive plan that there was 2 different land uses covering this property. So I want to make sure we have a thorough discussion on that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Rebecca?
Once we take this vote, can we take a short break?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, all those, only if you vote right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to take a 5-minute break. All right. 9.6, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-050. A resolution accepting the lowest qualified bids and awarding contracts for the Village of DeForest Police Department and Village Hall renovations. All right,
Move to approve.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any question or discussion? Yes, Rebecca.
Yeah, I'm voting for this, but I just wanted to clarify. I think when I spoke with you today, Bill, that this actually came in under what we had anticipated. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And what we had originally budgeted for?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
Just a similar comment. I personally feel some of these improvements, I question the necessity of them, but seeing that it came in so far under budget, I don't think it's worth changing anything, so.
Okay.
Most of these improvements were stemmed by the judicial survey that they did of the village, so that's where that's coming from.
Yep, I'm aware.
Okay. We're going to be safe. All right. Any other comments? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh,
Motion carries. 9.7, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-051, a resolution accepting the lowest qualified bids and awarding a contract for reconstruction and resurfacing of County Highway V.
motion to approve.
We have a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, Bill's going to be the second. Colleen made the motion. Any comments, questions? Yes, Rebecca.
Just one, and this is back to the financial part. I know this came in under budget, and we're still waiting on some grant monies or has that all been, or is that a different one?
So there were a couple of different grants for this one. There was a carbon reduction grant, which one would no longer apply to this one, I believe. But when we had discussed about the split between the county and.
That's what it was, okay.
And Judd's prepared to answer that.
Oh, awesome.
So the breakdown is about 53% is our cost, 47% is the county's. So The county's share of the 2.1 million dollars is 992,000. The village's cost is 1.1 million. That's just for the construction. That's not engineering. That's not contingency. But that breakdown 5347 is throughout.
But overall, it sounds like it's coming in under what we had originally anticipated.
Original OPC was about 3.9 million. So we're about 1.4 under that OPC.
Okay.
A huge differential is the railroad and what we were told was needed and what they allowed us to not have to do was about $600,000 difference.
Okay.
That was a big
Thank you.
swing.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, I was just wondering what's the detour gonna be for trucks? I mean, the cars will go anywhere, but is it gonna go down Northtown to Vinburn and then up Main Street?
Yep, it'll go down and then up Main Street until, but then the intersection will also be improved through there. So we'll actually be routing them down South Street to River Road. So South Street, that resurfacing project should be done well before this gets started as well. So there'll be no impacts to that.
That'll be interesting, because there's a lot of trucks that come through there. I was
Sure.
surprised.
It'll be limited going down there. I mean, we're gonna try to get through the intersection as quick as we can so that I can get back open to facilitate those turns. But I mean, South Street is technically a truck route as well, so it can.
It'll be a great improvement. It's about time. Thanks.
I'm glad to have the improvement. I just want to go on record. You know that Main Street is almost impossible to get out on from Meadow. Hopefully, we won't have a worse problem.
I might encourage you just to go down through Windsor or to South Street, but I would go down to Windsor and come out on Vinburn so you're at a controlled intersection.
Yeah, it's a nightmare now. Okay, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Discussion at 9.8, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-052, a resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a collateral assignment of incentive agreement for the Springs of DeForest.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Are there any comments or discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Discussion and possible action regarding 2025-053, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to accept and record a stormwater and drainage easement over Lot 2 CSM number 14841.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 9.10, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-054, a resolution authorizing a village administrator to accept and record a public access easement over Lot 2 CSM number 14841.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, discussions, or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 9.10, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-054, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to accept and record a public access easement over Lot 2 CSM number 14841.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Yeah. 9.11.
You read 9.10 twice.
Isn't that clever of me? Let's do that again. Let's have a mulligan. Item 9.11, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-055, a resolution authorizing a village administrator to release an access easement over Outlot 2 CSM number 15544.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on 9.11. Any comments, questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion does carry. Sorry about that, guys. 9.12. Discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-056, a resolution authorizing a village administrator to accept and record an access easement over Outlot 2 CSM number 15544.
Motion approved.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9.13, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-022 and ordinance amending section 1.07 of the DeForest Municipal Code relating to village board meeting procedures.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Must have captured what we wanted, Bill. Good work. All right, communications, check register was in your packet. Committee, commission, and board minutes were in your packet. Just a note, the Dane County Cities and Villages annual meeting is May 14th. Do you have anything else?
No, they have not met yet since the last week we spoke, so I don't have any other updates. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business that lawfully comes before the board? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second. We have a motion and a second. I got that one right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:58 PM.